So there's an awkward gap, there's a radiator, and I don't really want that being wide open. I'd rather have the winch up here anyway, so it just seems to make sense.
Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. 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 Today's gonna be a good day.
Hey guys, welcome to my garage. I got this thing, I haven't really talked about it much yet, so I might talk about that a little bit. And got some things to go on this thing here. Goodness. It's almost kind of shiny. I went to the hardware store and I got a hose and a squirt gun, so I might try to wash some of the mud off some of these toys in the driveway instead of going to the car wash and paying $4 every time. And I wanted to get some extra set of keys cut for this thing because the original keys only came with one set and they're half worn. So this is a 1984 Camaro, but today's video is probably not going to be about that. Today it's going to be this winch plate going on the Honda Pioneer 520. You have to excuse my mess. Excuse the mess as usual. So this is a high mount winch plate, and it's identical to the KFI mount. The KFI setup has been around for a while. I think I used the KFI bracket on the Honda Rancher. So this is a KFI copycat. It's not a KFI mount, but it looks identical to the KFI mount. So it's upside down and it goes like this. It goes up high. So if you get the winch mount from Honda for the Pioneer 520, it mounts it down low, and I didn't want it down low on the 520. I wanted it up higher. So we're gonna try this. Now, I did have to spread it a little bit because it wasn't really fitting perfectly, but I've read some of the ratings and stuff, and people said the same thing. They said they had to spread it open a bit to get it to fit. So it's gonna go here, up here, but the factory, if you order one from Honda, it comes down here. And I didn't really want it down that low. I've been in the mud and stuff with the other one, and I want to lift the plow up. I think it's better up here for lifting the plow up, and you know, if you do get in the mud, it's probably better up here. So 3/16 steel, pretty heavy duty. It does go like this, and it clamps to the front bumper, and there's some U-bolts that goes in the back, and the U-bolts will go directly into the frame. Actually, there's a front frame tube, so the U-bolts will go around this tubular part of the frame, and then there's these side ones, they just clamp to the sides of the bumper. I think it goes in on a bit of an angle like this, 3/4 of the way. Yeah, then you rotate it down just a little bit more than that. Sits something like this. So there's two bolts that goes in here, one above and one below the support for the bumper. But yeah, that's about it. And you can reach under here to attach the winch, and the winch is going to be up here. This just makes sense if you ask me, because there's this awkward gap here between the grill and the bumper. The winch is from Honda, comes down here. So there's an awkward gap, there's a radiator, and I don't really want that being wide open. I'd rather have the winch up here anyway, so it just seems to make sense. Okay, so I'm gonna get the hardware, nuts and bolts and stuff, put that on. I just moved the Camaro out. I've only had the Camaro for a couple of days, there's something wet underneath. So gonna have to check that out maybe. Might end up swapping the engine, put a V8 in it. It's got a V6 car. But we're gonna focus on this today. Okay, wow, she's a little bit dirty. Maybe I'll use my new garden hose and give her a rinse, give her a wash down later. So the bolts are gonna go through here, and there's gonna be a little plate on the inside. So it came with these plates. They're gonna go on the inside, and bolts are gonna go through above and below this square tube right here. So it came with this hardware. These U-bolts go in the very back, this round frame tube here that goes across. And the U-bolt goes around that, like that, but further in, and it's gonna go through those holes there. So right now it's not sitting level, but I got my hands full with the camera. That's the gist of it. Looks like they're all nylon lock nuts. Alright, so I got these bolts in here, just finger tight. So basically it's sitting on the outside and it clamps with these bolts. See under here maybe? Just clamps to that tube there. And we'll probably cinch her down, get her lined up where we want it. I'll have to get the U-bolts in the back first before I tighten it down. The U-bolts are gonna go around the frame, which is good, I guess. Sheesh, okay, there she is. On the 2023 Honda Pioneer 520. Got the Dawson KFI copycat winch plate on there off Amazon. This one was like, I don't know, 20-30 bucks cheaper than the KFI mount, but it seems to be the same thing. So yeah, I tightened these bolts down, lined her up sort of the way I wanted it. Got the U-bolts in the back. I did put the U-bolts in the vise and close them a bit because they were sprung and they wouldn't quite line up. Same with the bracket. It was bent in a little bit too much, and I had to open her up a bit. But aside from that, she's pretty straightforward. A lot easier than the Rancher 420 was, because you have to take the bumper off and tuck everything in. So I do have this Champion 45 that I took off of the Jimmy plow truck. And I still have the same plow, the UTV side-by-side plow. I've only used it for one season, so I don't know. I might reuse this. I might use that one, maybe. Yeah, I gotta find the wiring and do the wiring, and bolting it down should be pretty easy. With this setup, you do need the fair lead plate. This one has the fair lead plate coming up 90 degrees. So you do need that. The bolts will probably have to go through here first. But overall, the winch plate fits good. It's nice and sturdy. And hopefully, you know, close in that awkward gap. This is the upgrade bumper, the accessory bumper from Honda, which comes with headlight protection, and it comes up higher as well. Ooh, there she is, Champion 45. Does have a little bit of marks on it because I did use it for one winter on the Jimmy, but it seems to fit good. I'm pretty sure the contactor goes under the hood here. So putting the winch motor and bracket on was pretty easy, but we're getting into the wiring now. It's a little more involved. So I took the hood off, and the contactor is going to go was gonna go up here somewhere on this crossbar, but there's another crossbar down lower. So the wires, I'm not sure how if they're gonna be long enough to reach all the way up here or not, so they might have to go on that crossbar there. So I got the contactors, gonna mount here somewhere. I took a plastic piece off in here so I could reach under this other plastic and try to feed the wires back. But I found the easiest way was to drop the skid plate. It's only like 2 or 3 bolts on this side. You can sort of pull the plastic skid plate down and you can reach, feed the wires underneath and get them back to here. And there's more plastic that has to come off here underneath the passenger seat. The seats just pop off. If you pull at the back of the seat, just pop the back of the seat out. And the same with the back of the seat. They just pop off on the lower half, I think it is. And the driver's side just has a rubber access for the oil change. But the passenger side, you gotta pull some couple screws and some plastic plugs out there. So when I'm feeding them down through, they're basically in this part, in this section here. So the wires are basically coming down through there. And there's a factory harness here. She's dirty already, but that's the factory harness there. And I just got them pulled through. Took a few minutes to pull this plastic off and get her fed down through. I took a couple bolts out of the skid plate, and that allowed me to fish my fingers in there and fish these wires back through here. So the battery is just beyond here. Battery's in this box here. I haven't opened it up yet, but it looks like it's just gonna be 10 mil. But maybe this one and this one. It looks like there's a good ground. This is a good ground point here, and it's actually a little bit shorter if you need the lengths. So we're gonna get into that probably next. Alright, I got the wires sort of attached and buttoned up here. So the yellow one is going directly to the positive, and the ground wire is going here to the factory cluster. I think this ground wire goes down to there. So anyway, that's where my ground is. That's where my power is. And I tried to keep the power wire tied over, away from the ground there. And I tried to exit the factory, where the factory wires go up in. So I think we can put the cover back on. Alright, so I got the wires going from the contactor back to the battery. Got that connected and routed. And I got these two coming up over here, I guess. That's not too bad. So there's some factory wires here. And then I go vertical here. There's a steel thing here. Put a tie there. Tie them together here. So that's not too bad, I guess. Try to tuck some things, and there's a couple wires here that goes to the controller. So the controller has a little bit of wire, and it used to have the ATV style clamp. So it clamps to the handlebar or whatever, similar to the Rancher. And there's not very many small diameter bars in the cabin to clamp it to. So I tied up the controller wires the best I could over to here, and I think that's a pretty adequate position. You can access it from the driver's position or from outside the vehicle, so that's good. There's a little notch here. I just tucked the wire into that little notch, tied it up the best I could. Some of the controllers require the accessory plug, and I don't have it. I'll probably order it, but for now I just tucked that wire into the, I think it's the black wire. So it's working, and the key has to be on with the accessory wire. Oof. Okay, in. Okay, pull it in a bit. A little more. A little more. Okay.